Okay, everyone, today's lesson is on multiplying rational numbers. This is the second part of the video. It's chapter 2.4, and today's lesson is going to focus specifically on multiplying fractions. In our previous video, we had multiplying decimals, and we previously have done divisibility tests, which will help us with our multiplying fractions as well. So let's get started. The first part of multiplying fractions is the normal steps for multiplying. The steps are a little simpler, but to solve it is a little bit harder. So after this way, I'm going to show you a little bit of an easier way to do it, so there's not as much work to do at the end. So step one for multiplying fractions is we need to multiply across the top. So we're going to multiply the numerators together, and then multiply across the bottom and multiply the denominators together. So we're going to be taking these two numbers here and these two numbers here, and we're going to be multiplying them across to create our new fraction. And then at the end, the part that makes these ones a little bit more difficult is that we need to simplify or reduce our answer at the end. So when I'm solving these, I just need to multiply 9 times 10 and 16 times 21. And if you notice, these two numbers are a little bit bigger, so it's going to be a pretty big number. But when we do multiply across that, we get 90 over 336. Then I need to think back, can I reduce this? Is there a number that goes into both 90 and 336? And if I look quickly at it, I realize that these are both even numbers, so I know that these can both be divided by 2. So 90 divided by 2 and 336 divided by 2 is going to give me 45 over 168. Still not that nice look of a looking fraction, so I need to see if I could divide that again by anything else. They're not both even numbers, but if I add them together, 4 plus 5 is 9, and 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 8 is 15. Both of those numbers are divisible by 3. So I could divide both those numbers by 3, and I end up with my final answer of 15 over 56. So that kind of takes a while. I also could have realized that 90 and 336 are divisible by 2 and by 3, which means they also are divisible by 6. So I only would have had to divide one time, but I was just doing it quickly, so I did it twice instead. So please pause the video here and write this in your notes along with the example, please. And then we're going to move on to the next slide. So now we have the steps for multiplying fractions using the cancellation method. This is the method that I prefer to use. It makes it go a little bit faster, and we don't have to do as much reducing at the end. So step one for the cancellation method is we need to cancel out a numerator and a denominator by dividing by common factors. So we need to find a numerator and denominator that have common factors that we can divide by. And we're going to make the numerator and the denominator the lowest possible number. After we get that in the lowest possible numbers, we're going to then multiply across the numbers on the top and the bottom to get our new answer. And the nice thing is then at the end, we don't have to reduce at all. So when I'm looking at the same multiplication problem that I did in the last one, I'm going to look at my numerator and denominator, and I look at 9 and 21 first, and I realize that both 9 and 21 can be divided by 3. So now I'm going to do the division. So 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. So I'm canceling out the 9 and putting a 3. And 21 divided by 3 is going to give me 7. Then I'm going to look at my other two numbers, and I have 10 and 16. Both of those are even numbers, so I can divide both of those by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is going to give me 5, and 16 divided by 2 is going to give me 8. So these types of division problems are a lot easier than dividing those big numbers that we had on the previous slide. And now that I have these in the lowest possible form, I just need to multiply across the top. So 3 times 5 gives me 15, and 8 times 7 gives me 56. And that is my answer. So that is the same answer that I got on the previous one, but a lot easier of division that I needed to do to come up with this answer. So please pause the video here and write down these steps in your notes. And I would probably put a star by these because I would imagine you're going to want to use these steps a little bit more than the other steps. So again, pause, write these in your notes along with the example. And now we're going to do a few more examples. I believe there's only 3 of them. So here's example 1. I have 14 over 15 times 15 over 16. And again, the first thing I need to do is find a numerator and denominator that I can divide by the same number. So I'm going to start off by looking at 14 and 16. Both of those are even numbers, so I can divide those by 2. And 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. And 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. Then I'm going to look at my other 2 numbers, and I have 15 and 15. And both of those numbers can be divided by 15. So now I need to do the division part. 15 divided by 15 gives me 1. And 15 divided by 15 gives me 1. And then I just have to multiply across. So 7 times 1 gives me 7. 1 times 8 on the bottom gives me 8. So my answer is 7 over 8. Again, it's a lot easier than multiplying 14 times 15 and 15 times 16 and then dividing at the end. So pause the video here and write that example in your notes. And we'll move on to the next slide. The next one is 2/5 times 3/4. So here I have to look at numbers I can divide. I'm going to look at the 2 and the 4. Both those numbers can be divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. And if I look at the 3 and the 5, I can't divide both of those by the same number, so I don't have to do anything with those actually. So these are already in the lowest form, so all I need to do then is multiply across. So 1 times 3 gives me 3. 5 times 2 gives me 10. So my final answer is 3 over 10. So pause the video here and write that in your notes. And now we are on our last example. I have 6 over 9 and 4 over 7. So for this one, normally what we did is we are looking at diagonals, but 6 and 7, I can't divide those by the same number. And 4 and 9, I can't divide those by the same number. But what I can do is look at these two. So I have a numerator and a denominator. They don't have to be diagonal. And I have 6 and 9. Both 6 and 9 can be divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. And then there's nothing else that I can divide. So now I'm going to multiply across. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. And 3 times 7 gives me 21. So my final answer is 8 over 21, and that's the lowest possible fraction that I can make, as simplified as it can be. So pause the video here and write that example in your notes. And that is it for today. So your assignment's going to be multiplying fractions. Make sure that you choose the method that works best for you. I prefer the cancellation method. It makes it easier at the end, but you'll have about 10 problems to solve. You are going to want to write them on a separate sheet of paper when you're going to be canceling them out. So have a good day, and I'll see you guys soon.